Good morning. It is Thursday. We are nearly through another week already. And you are listening to PRBites, which is the spoken version. It's me reading out the newsletter, which I've just put out. And if you want to get the newsletter, the hard copy of the newsletter, you can get that by going to the publicrelationspodcast.com, thepublicrelationspodcast.com, and clicking on the newsletter button. It is as simple as that. But what have I got for you today? Well, there are three main headlines, starting off with, should a business start with advertising or PR? And I suspect with the work that you're doing, you're probably going to say PR. Well, there is a good reason for this. I will explain in just a second. Secondly, by limiting who you're prepared to work with, you could be gaining more clients. That's something I've observed as well. And a celebrity, the one I was talking about on Tuesday, has gone into trouble again. What should we do to help them this time? Let's get started with the I Spotted section. So the first thing I spotted over the past couple of hours is a thought about whether campaigns sometimes appear to backfire when they haven't. You know, it is so easy to feel a campaign has backfired if you get a few negative comments, right? But it got me thinking when I saw a video last night shared by a security company taken inside a shop during the current riots happening in the United Kingdom. And it showed protesters standing outside the shop, kicking the glass doors and trying to break in. But the glass door wasn't giving way. It wasn't even cracking. And this security company made the comment, something along the lines of, I wonder who made these doors because these rioters have given them the greatest advert ever. When I first saw this story, it was actually a repost by a friend on LinkedIn. And the comments that appeared on her post said how wrong it was to use violence like this to promote a product. And my gut reaction reading these couple of comments was to think, okay, that kind of backfired, didn't it? But then I clicked on the original post from the security company. So not the repost, but the original one. And it was something like 110 laughter emojis, 60 light bulb moments of aha emojis, and nearly 1,000 likes. So I think there's a couple of things to take away from this. As always, if we look at these things objectively, number one is to make sure that you have some degree of control of or confidence in what those initial comments will be. Because when you look around threads, you can see how the first few comments often set the tone for the rest of the comments that will appear in the comments thread. You know, whoever makes that first assessment due to social validation, people tend to then go and continue with that thread unless you've got someone that's going to buck that trend. So it's important to kind of have that some degree of control. Obviously, you're not putting out your own comments. You need to be making sure that you've got people that are likely to agree with your tone or your approach. And then number two, that someone will always be upset. And as we've seen in so many PR campaigns, particularly over the past few years, the question is not so much will this upset someone, but will it upset anyone that matters? So if we try to please everyone, as so many firms still try to do, we please and engage with no one, which achieves none of our goals. So in the current context, particularly on social media, someone is always going to be upset. And it's about ensuring that the people who aren't upset are the people that we're trying to reach. A couple of takeaways then from things I've observed over the past couple of hours. Next one, actually there was one other one. What comes first, PR or advertising? I know some of you love Gary Vaynerchuk and some of you don't, but I saw a clip last night that once again points out the value of PR, I thought. He said the problem with traditional marketing people is that they come up with creative ideas with a few surveys and test groups and then put loads of money into it. And that puts all the risk on that creative element. And millions are wasted as a result of this one great idea that flops. And what he said you should be doing is putting out an ongoing organic campaign. So let's translate that to PR, whether that's through social media, news articles, or whatever. And once you spot the content that people react to the most, you then put money into ads to boost that content with a few tweaks. Just like any campaign, whether it's a product-based or message-based campaign, there will be a call to action, right? Whatever you're doing, whatever campaigns you're running right now, there's a call to action. So you then put that CTA on the video or on the content that worked and then boost it with money that will push it further, much further, to many more people who haven't seen it than the organic reach alone did so far. So in simple terms, employing PR people to run ongoing narrative campaigns actually reduces the risk for the marketing investment in businesses. You're testing the market with ideas and content for the ad campaigns, while at the same time still building followers and engagement every day, which is something those focus groups and surveys were never going to do. So there's yet another reason for having PR in business today. Next section, getting clients. One way I've seen others get more clients is by niching. For example, one of our regular guests on the Public Relations podcast has a specialist cycling agency focused on the cycling industry. And so they know all the journalists and all the manufacturers within that space. It allows them to be the absolute go-to agency for the cycling industry and for reporters wanting to know what is going on. And I've seen this more and more actually in all kinds of industries. There was a huge growth in the kind of fintech and financial services sector, particularly because people needed to communicate with stakeholders ahead of IPOs and things like that. But there's still so many other niches that can be taken advantage from. Maybe you can launch a separate brand for health club PR or the home food delivery business. One thought, I didn't put this in the newsletter, but there's no reason why you can't have that central company that is doing all of it, but you have multiple brands for each different focus PR. And ideally, you want to have at least one specialist within that space, like a health club PR, someone that's done health club PR for many years in these different niches so that you can promote it. Have you tried niching, though? Has it worked for you? I would love to cover you if you have, and if you'd like to come on the podcast and tell me about your story. What do we got next? Yeah, so comms question time. I've got an update for you. I've got 2 shows booked now out of the 3 test shows that I'm planning for comms question time. And if you're new to PRBites or the Public Relations podcast, then these are 3 special panel shows I'm doing to promote the value of comms and PR to the business world. So each show will have 2 to 3 panelists. If you didn't get your invite, by the way, let me know. I'll tell you how you can get hold of me a little bit later. And what we'll do in the show is these panelists will all work on comms problems in the show for businesses together as a panel and come up with a strategy that the listeners can actually follow. And I'm going to make the panels global. I'm really trying to do this because I want to try and get different perspectives from around the world. And I still don't have anyone from Australia in any of them. So if you are in Oz, please message me on LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn and search for my name, Richard Midson, Midson, Midson. Connect with me and let's try and get you on. Next section, quick tip from a guest. A quick tip from Kathleen Lucente from Red Fan Communications, who we've spoken to before, of course. Her advice was this: incorporate a green, yellow, and red crisis alert system into your company's crisis plan. Then categorize potential issues by severity. By training the key players to recognize these levels and then respond accordingly to the crisis grade, you create a clear flow that can then kick into action fast before a crisis escalates. So what she's saying is breaking that, instead of just going, how do we handle this, or whether we have one generic plan, by categorizing them, it's able to kick in the right plan with the right level of response quickly so that it can get underway. And finally, for PR Bites today, let's take our PR puzzle. And this is an oh dear moment. We're back in the same office we were in on Tuesday, representing our celebrity client who had that major Barney with his former friend who accused him of making insensitive remarks 15 years ago. Your efforts to quell that story were successful. But just as you felt you were getting control of it, a viral video emerges of your client at a recent event. In the clip, they appear to make an offhand remark, which some viewers find insensitive. Social media is ablaze, with hashtags calling for accountability and apologies. You ask your client what happened, and they say it was taken completely out of context. They were defending a position and using a devil's advocate approach of saying what others would say, they claim. The problem is that this has reignited that fire from Tuesday. While there was no evidence that your client made those comments 15 years ago, this seems to back up the idea that they might have made them. So what are you going to do? You're in charge of their PR, and as usual, we've got just 2 choices. Do you A, recommend your client releases a video statement on their social media, providing context for the remark and explaining that they should not be so trusting of people to take things out of context in future, and then give examples of how they've always supported the more accepted view in the past? Or do you release a simple written statement explaining the same context as the video and then take a temporary break from social media to reflect on a difficult week for the client? You tell them to take a temporary break from social media. What do you do? What would be your choice in that one? I think I would do a mix of both. Firstly, something does need to be put out, or it's just hanging out there, isn't it? If there's plenty of evidence to show they opposed the view in the past, then get them to list it in the statement. But also, they still need to acknowledge the fact that they should have been more careful with their words, as some people may not hear the full context and then get the wrong impression. I think a video, like I was saying on Tuesday, if the celebrity is authentic, is going to go down better than a written statement, which could be misread as being defensive. And then once that's done, I'd go quiet. Get them off social media. Don't make any other statements. Wait for things to die down a little bit. And then you can always come back with a gentle recovery after that. I mean, there is so much more that can be said. And as I said on Tuesday, it really comes down to context and the situation and the celebrity as to how to approach it. But that's what I would do. What would you do, though? I may not be right on this. This is simply based on my observations and my experience of PR and news from my background, and also from watching what other PR and comms people do too. But what would you do? How would you handle that? I would love to know. Okay, that's it for today. That is PR Bites. Have an absolutely wonderful weekend. I'm going to be back on Tuesday. Don't forget, if you know anyone who should be getting this newsletter too, or the PR Bites podcast episodes, and make sure they go to the publicrelationspodcast.com, where they can either subscribe to the newsletter or click to get links to the podcast too. That's it. Have an awesome weekend. I'll speak to you real soon.